6 months ago, I deployed my first mobile application to the App Store, an app that's now being used by over 50,000 people across 12 countries to manage their household budgets and meal planning. The tech blogs called it surprisingly sophisticated and remarkably intuitive, and venture capitalists have reached out asking if I'm interested in scaling it into a full business. But here's what none of them know. 3 years ago, I didn't know how to copy and paste on a computer. I thought Java was just a type of coffee. Python was only a snake, and when my grandson mentioned he was learning to code, I genuinely asked him if that meant learning secret spy languages. My name is Linda Patterson. I'm 58 years old, and for 35 years, I was a homemaker who believed that technology was something other people understood. Younger people, smarter people, people whose brains were wired differently than mine. I was wrong about all of it, and this is the story of how losing everything I thought defined me led me to discover a version of myself I never knew existed. Let me paint you a picture of who I was 3 years ago, because I need you to understand just how far removed I was from the world I now inhabit. I was 55 years old, living in a comfortable 4-bedroom house in suburban Ohio that my husband Michael and I had bought 30 years earlier, right after our wedding. My days followed a rhythm that had barely changed in 3 decades. I woke up at 6, made coffee in the same percolator I'd received as a wedding gift, prepared breakfast for Michael before he left for his job as a regional sales manager, and then I cleaned, organized, planned meals, did laundry, tended to my garden, and managed the household in ways that my mother had taught me and her mother had taught her. I wasn't unhappy. At least, I didn't think I was unhappy. I had raised 3 children who had all grown into successful, independent adults. Jennifer was a lawyer in Chicago, Marcus was a teacher in Portland, and Ashley was a nurse in Cleveland. I had been a good mother, the kind who never missed a soccer game or school play, who baked cookies for every bake sale, who knew exactly how each child liked their sandwiches cut and which bedtime stories they preferred. When they left home, one by one, I transferred that same energy into being the perfect wife, the perfect neighbor, the perfect volunteer at church.
But if I'm being completely honest with myself, and at 58 I've learned that honesty is the only thing worth practicing, there was always this quiet voice in the back of my mind asking, is this all there is? Is this all you are?
I remember the exact moment that voice became too loud to ignore. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March 2021, and I was sitting in my kitchen folding laundry while watching a talk show I didn't really care about, eating lunch I wasn't really hungry for, when my daughter Jennifer called. She was excited about a promotion she'd just received, and as she described her new responsibilities and the projects she'd be leading, I realized with sudden, crushing clarity that I had nothing to share in return. My life was so small, so contained, so utterly devoid of growth or challenge that I couldn't remember the last time I had learned something new or accomplished something that made me proud. When she asked, "So what's new with you, Mom?" I said what I always said. "Oh, you know, the usual, keeping busy." But after we hung up, I sat at that kitchen table and cried in a way I hadn't cried since I was a teenager, because I realized that keeping busy and having a life were not the same thing at all. 2 months later, in May 2021, Michael came home from work with news that would dismantle the life I had so carefully constructed. His company was downsizing, and after 28 years of loyal service, he was being let go with a severance package that would last us 6 months if we were careful. He was 57 years old, in an industry that worshipped youth, and his prospects for finding equivalent employment were, as he put it with devastating honesty, not great. We sat at our kitchen table that night, the same table where I had cried 2 months earlier, and did calculations that became more frightening with every number we wrote down. Our savings were modest. We had been planning to work another 10 years before retirement. The house, which we had thought was paid off, still had a home equity line of credit against it that we'd taken out to help pay for the kids' college educations. Our health insurance would run out in 3 months. For the first week after Michael lost his job, I did what I had always done when faced with crisis. I cleaned. I cleaned closets that were already clean, organized drawers that were already organized, cooked elaborate meals that we barely ate. It was my daughter Ashley, during one of her visits, who finally said what needed to be said. "Mom, you need to get a job." The words hit me like cold water. A job? I was 55 years old. I had no college degree, no recent work experience, no skills that anyone would pay for in 2021. The last time I had worked outside the home was in 1986, when I was a receptionist at a dental office, and I had quit when I became pregnant with Jennifer, because that's what you did back then, or at least what I thought you did. I started applying for jobs, and the rejections, when I received any response at all, were swift and brutal. Retail stores wanted people who could work weekends and evenings, who could stand for 8-hour shifts. Administrative positions required familiarity with software programs I had never heard of: Excel, Salesforce, Slack, Zoom. Even the receptionist positions, which I thought I could do, wanted someone with digital literacy and social media experience. I remember sitting at the desktop computer in our home office, a computer that Michael used for work and I used maybe twice a year to look up recipes, and crying tears of frustration because I couldn't figure out how to attach my resume to an email. I had written my resume on Microsoft Word after watching a YouTube tutorial 3 times, but when I tried to send it, I kept getting error messages I didn't understand. My son Marcus, who is the most patient of my 3 children, spent an entire Sunday afternoon teaching me basic computer skills via video call. He showed me how to create folders, how to save documents, how to use keyboard shortcuts, how to search for things online beyond just typing into Google. And during that call, he said something that changed the trajectory of my life. "Mom, you know what field is desperate for workers and actually pays well? Tech, programming. They can't find enough people to fill the jobs." I laughed, actually laughed out loud. "Marcus, honey, I can barely send an email. I'm not going to become a programmer." But he persisted, the way he had persisted as a child when he wanted something, wearing me down with logic and enthusiasm. He told me about coding bootcamps, specifically designed for career changers, about companies that were actively trying to diversify their workforce and were looking for people from non-traditional backgrounds, about the fact that programming was actually more about logical thinking and problem solving than about being naturally good with computers. "Mom," he said, "you ran a household with 3 kids, managed Dad's business travel schedule for years, coordinated family events, budgeted down to the penny, and taught yourself how to do electrical wiring when we couldn't afford an electrician. You already think like a programmer, you just don't know it yet." That conversation planted a seed that grew into an obsession. I started researching coding bootcamps, reading articles about people who had changed careers into tech, watching YouTube videos about what programming actually was. The more I learned, the more fascinated I became, not just with the practical reality that tech jobs paid well and were plentiful, but with the fundamental concept that you could tell a computer what to do and it would do it. That you could create something from nothing using just logic and language. But I was also terrified. The boot camps cost between $10,000 and $20,000, money we didn't have. They required full-time commitment for 3 to 6 months. They were filled with people in their 20s and 30s who had grown up with technology in a way I never had. Every rational part of my brain said this was crazy, that I was too old, too inexperienced, too far behind to ever catch up. Michael, to his eternal credit, said something I will never forget. "Linda, for 35 years, you've made my dreams possible. You put your life on hold so I could focus on my career, so our kids could focus on their education. Maybe it's time we make your dreams possible, even if we don't know yet what those dreams are." So in August 2021, 3 months after Michael lost his job and 1 month before I turned 56, I enrolled in an online coding bootcamp that specialized in full-stack web development. I used money from our dwindling savings, and I committed to something I had never committed to before, putting my own education first. The first day of bootcamp, I seriously considered quitting. The orientation session was held on Zoom, a platform I had only recently learned to use, and I was surrounded by virtual boxes filled with faces of people who looked like they could be my children or even my grandchildren. They were talking casually about Git and GitHub, about terminal commands and text editors, using terminology that sounded like a foreign language. When the instructor asked us to introduce ourselves and explain why we were there, I listened to person after person talk about their previous jobs in startups, their computer science courses in college, their side projects building websites and apps. When it was my turn, I almost lied, almost invented some technical background to make myself seem less out of place. But then I thought about my daughter Jennifer, who had taught me that vulnerability was strength, and I told the truth. My name is Linda Patterson. I'm 55 years old. For the last 35 years, I've been a homemaker. I don't have any technical background. I'm here because my husband lost his job and we need income, but also because I want to prove to myself that I'm capable of more than I've allowed myself to be. The silence that followed felt like it lasted an hour, though it was probably only seconds. Then the instructor, a woman named Priya who couldn't have been older than 30, said, "Linda, that's exactly the kind of determination this field needs. Welcome." The first month was the hardest thing I have ever done, and I have given birth to 3 children without epidurals. The boot camp moved at a pace that felt deliberately designed to break you. 8 hours of instruction per day, plus another 4 to 6 hours of homework and practice. We started with HTML and CSS, which are the building blocks of websites. And while they seemed simple in concept, the reality of making them work correctly was maddeningly difficult. I would spend hours trying to figure out why my web page looked wrong, only to discover that I had forgotten a single semicolon or misspelled a single word. I cried almost daily those first few weeks, usually late at night when Michael was already asleep and I was still at the computer, surrounded by textbooks and notes and empty coffee mugs, feeling completely overwhelmed and absolutely certain I had made a terrible mistake.
But here's what I discovered. Being old in a field dominated by young people isn't the disadvantage I thought it would be. Yes, the younger students could type faster and had more intuitive understanding of how computers worked, but I had something they didn't have. I had decades of experience with persistent problem solving, with pushing through discomfort, with not giving up when things got hard, because I had 3 kids and a household to manage and no choice but to figure it out.
The turning point came in week 6 when we moved from basic HTML and CSS into JavaScript, which is an actual programming language that makes websites interactive. Our assignment was to build a simple calculator that could add, subtract, multiply, and divide. It sounds simple, but it requires understanding variables, functions, conditionals, and event handling, concepts that felt impossibly abstract to me. I spent an entire Saturday working on that calculator. I read the documentation, watched tutorial videos, asked questions in the bootcamp Slack channel, broke my code and fixed it dozens of times, and then at around 8 o'clock that evening, it worked. I clicked the buttons on my calculator and it performed the correct calculations, and I felt a rush of accomplishment so profound that I actually jumped up from my chair and screamed, causing Michael to run into the room thinking something was wrong. "It works," I told him, pointing at my screen with shaking hands. "I built something, and it works." He looked at the simple calculator on my screen, just numbers and buttons and basic arithmetic, and he saw what I saw, proof that I could do this, that my brain was still capable of learning new things, that age was just a number and not a limitation. What saved me during those brutal months was the community I found, both in my bootcamp cohort and in the wider world of people learning to code. I discovered online forums like Stack Overflow, where programmers of all levels helped each other solve problems. I found Discord servers dedicated to career changers in tech. I connected with other women who were learning to code, many of them also from non-traditional backgrounds. There was Maria, a former nurse who was learning to code at 52. There was Deborah, a former teacher who had started learning at 60. There was Janet, who had been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years and was now building websites for small businesses. These women became my lifeline, the voices that reminded me on my worst days that what I was attempting wasn't just possible, it was being done by people just like me. I completed the boot camp in February 2022, 6 months after I started, 1 month after my 56th birthday. The final project was a full-stack web application, meaning both the user-facing interface and the behind-the-scenes server logic, and I built a recipe management app that let users save recipes, create shopping lists, and plan meals for the week. It wasn't revolutionary, but it worked, it was clean, and it solved a real problem in a user-friendly way. I graduated feeling proud, but also terrified, because now came the part everyone had warned me would be hardest, getting someone to actually hire a 56-year-old woman with no professional tech experience. The job search was brutal. I applied to over 200 positions in 3 months. I received maybe 20 responses, got 10 interviews, and was rejected from all of them. The feedback, when I received any, was always some variation of, "We decided to go with someone with more experience," or "We're looking for someone who's a better cultural fit," which I strongly suspected was code for someone younger. It was my son, Marcus, who suggested I stop applying for traditional entry-level developer jobs and instead focus on freelancing and building my own projects. "You don't need someone's permission to be a programmer, Mom," he said. "You just need to program." So I did. I started offering my services on platforms like Upwork and Fiverr, taking on small projects for laughably small amounts of money, $50 to fix a broken website form, $100 to add a feature to someone's WordPress site. The work was unglamorous and the pay was terrible, but each project taught me something new and added to my portfolio. More importantly, I started building my own projects, real applications that solved real problems I had observed in my own life. I built a volunteer coordination app for my church that helped them schedule and manage volunteers more efficiently. I built a neighborhood carpooling app for parents in my community. And then I built the budget and meal planning app that would change everything. The idea came from my own experience managing a household on an increasingly tight budget while Michael was still job hunting.
I wanted an app that could help me plan meals based on what was on sale at the grocery store, generate shopping lists automatically, track our spending, and suggest recipes based on ingredients we already had. I looked for existing apps that did this, but everything I found was either too complicated, too expensive, or didn't quite work the way I needed it to work.
So I built it myself. I spent 3 months working on it every day, researching nutrition databases, designing the user interface, writing the code, testing every feature obsessively. I learned new programming languages and frameworks to make it work better. I watched tutorials on app deployment and payment processing. I taught myself graphic design to create the logo and icons.
In November 2022, 13 months after completing my bootcamp, I launched Home Budget Harmony on the App Store and Google Play. I priced it at $2.99, not expecting much. Maybe a few downloads from friends and family, maybe a few $100s total.
Within 2 weeks, it had 5,000 downloads. Within a month, 20,000. Users were leaving 5-star reviews calling it exactly what I needed and better than apps made by big companies. Tech blogs started writing about it as an example of thoughtful, user-centered design. Other developers started reaching out asking about my tech stack and methodology.
And then the emails from investors started coming. And suddenly, I wasn't just a woman who had learned to code. I was a founder, an entrepreneur, someone who had created something valuable that people wanted. Today, I'm 58 years old, and I work as a programmer, though that word still feels strange to say. Home Budget Harmony now has over 50,000 active users across 12 countries. I've hired 2 part-time developers to help me maintain it and build new features. I'm generating enough income that Michael, who did eventually find a new job, is now considering retiring early because we don't need his income anymore. But the money, while important and life-changing, isn't the most significant part of this story. The most significant part is that I discovered at 55 years old that I had spent 3.5 decades living a fraction of my potential because I had accepted other people's definitions of who I was and what I was capable of. I thought I was too old to learn. I was wrong. I thought programming was for people with a certain type of brain that I didn't have. I was wrong. I thought my value was in serving others, and that wanting something for myself was selfish. I was wrong about that too.
The tech industry talks a lot about diversity and inclusion, and while there's still enormous work to be done, I've found that being an older woman in this field is actually an advantage in ways I never expected. I think about user experience differently because I've lived more life. I think about accessibility differently because I remember what it was like to find technology intimidating. I think about solving real human problems differently because I've spent decades observing and solving real human problems in my home and community.
Since my story started gaining attention, I've received hundreds of emails and messages from other women and men who are in their 50s, 60s, even 70s, who had given up on the idea of learning something new or starting a new career because they thought it was too late. They tell me they've always been curious about programming but assumed it was only for young people or people who had studied it in school. They tell me they feel stuck in lives that no longer fit them but don't know how to change. Here's what I tell them. Learning to code at 55 was hard, but it wasn't hard because I was 55. It was hard because learning anything worthwhile is hard, regardless of your age. The difference is that at 55, I had the patience, persistence, and perspective to push through the hard parts without giving up. Qualities I'm not sure I would have had at 25.
Your brain doesn't stop being able to learn new things when you turn 50 or 60 or 70. Your brain doesn't suddenly become incapable of logical thinking or problem solving or creativity. What happens if we're not careful is that we stop challenging our brains with new experiences, and we start believing the cultural narrative that aging means declining, that our best years are behind us, that innovation and growth are only for the young.
I'm 58 years old and I'm a programmer. I write code every day, I solve complex problems, I build applications that make people's lives easier. I go to sleep each night excited about what I'm working on and wake up each morning eager to learn something new. But more than being a programmer, I'm someone who proved to herself that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be, that the narratives we inherit about women and aging and capability are often just stories we can choose to rewrite. My name is Linda Patterson, and if I can learn to code at 55 with no technical background, no college degree, and no prior experience beyond managing a household, then you can learn whatever it is you've been telling yourself you're too old or too inexperienced or too far behind to learn. The only question is, are you ready to start?